Y'all, something have got to be did about this black on black crime.
This is a world premiere. This is a world.
Welcome to another Happy It's Friday update, or I don't know if this is just a Happy It's Friday rant, I don't know, who cares? But anyway, so I started the day today with a notification that was a new video up by Controvertible Snitch, and he was talking about this idea of giving Donald Trump a chance. And since it is Inauguration Day, maybe I thought I'd say something a little bit about that. So Snitch was saying that, you know, what does it mean to give someone a chance? And he even asked everybody to kind of stop the video and give some thought to what it meant to give someone a chance, and then kind of looked at it from the standpoint of giving the president a chance. And he's pretty much right on by saying, you know, he's getting a chance. He's getting to be president of the United States. That's the chance he gets. What he does with it is up to him. I think it's all of our job to pitch in and do the work that's necessary to make sure that the country is moving in the direction that we believe it should be going in collectively. And the only way to know how people feel is for them to make their voices heard. So word on the street is that I'm a coward. Apparently, there is a YouTuber, a content creator who's been kind of haunting my comment section and the comment section on a few channels. And it kind of makes me laugh thinking about, you know, the experiences that I've had and the people that I have sat down and had conversations with during my life about some pretty, you know, difficult topics. I've been involved in community disaster recovery and had like angry mobs of people coming at me making demands. You know, I remember being in college and sitting down with James Baldwin and drinking scotch and discussing race. I've served dinner and sat down to dinner with hundreds of inmates in a Mexican prison. You know, I've sat down with Tony Kushner and talked about politics over dinner. So no, I'm not afraid to debate with anyone or have a conversation with anyone. I just, you know, the prerequisite for having a conversation with me is just to see me as a human being and to treat me with a little bit of respect. That said, that brings me to like my main comment. So one of the things that seems to get thrown out by people who are like white supremacist apologists or people who just don't want to consider the fact that there may be discrimination that exists still on a structural level simply because of the fact that the people who are displaying that discrimination are in positions of power. I guess, you know, maybe these people are trying to, you know, just state their position, but what they really are doing is they're painting a portrait of African Americans as somehow deserving of the treatment that they get. So they'll say something like, you know, look at the prevalence of black on black crime, which is the issue that I want to bring up in this video. When I first started thinking about this issue, I was looking at black on crime. The first thing that came to my mind was like, how many black people are killing black people, and how would that number compare to the number of white people that kill white people? And the first thing that I discovered was that the number of black people killed by black people is just, you know, maybe a few hundred lower than the number of white people who are killed by white people. So even though we can look at this and see that there are fewer black on black murders, it's still a disproportionate number. However, when we look at the numbers around African Americans, we can often see that if it's something that's, you know, bad, like poverty or, you know, lack of education or lack of health care or sickness, the number of people incarcerated, those numbers usually are disproportionate when we talk about black communities. So there's a number of people who are being murdered in the black community, but I wanted to widen the number because murder isn't the only type of crime that is happening in communities of color. And it's certainly not the only type of crime that happens in the United States. So I widened the lens a little bit and I looked at all violent crimes. And the reason why I wanted to focus on violent crimes is that I thought if there was anything that was going to justify wanting to use force against a particular type of individual, it would be because we were afraid that they were violent, that they were going to harm us. I also thought that if there was any argument for keeping someone incarcerated, it would be because they were, somehow dangerous to society, that they were going to harm people if they were free. So I went to two sources. One was the US Census website, where they have that quick fact sheet, and I also went to the Bureau for Justice Statistics, and I'll include links to both of those sources in the description box below. First of all, a little something about the Bureau of Justice Statistics, just so you guys know what it is. They're a part of the Justice Department, and their role is to collect, analyze, publish, and disseminate information on crime, criminal offenders, victims of crime, and the operation of the justice system at all levels of government. These data are critical to federal, state, and local policymakers in combating crime and ensuring that justice is both efficient and even-handed. According to these tables, which again, I'll include a link to that in the description box, 2.8 million whites were the targets of violent crimes. In 2008, 67% of the assailants in those cases were identified as white. 15.4% of the attacks were perpetrated by people who were identified as black. That means that 1.9 million violent white-on-white crimes occurred, and that represents 0.75% of the population. Now, on the other hand, there were 571,000 African Americans who were the target of violent crimes. About 65% of these assailants in those crimes were identified as the same race. They were black on black crimes. 15.9% of those attacks were committed by people who were identified as white. That means that there were 369,000 violent black on black crimes, representing 0.85% of the population. So according to those statistics, blacks are 0.1% more likely to commit an act of violence against another black person. And while whites are 2.7% more likely to commit a violent crime against a black person. So as we see, based on these statistics, most violent crimes, in the case of white-on-white crimes, it's 67% of violent crimes. In the case of black people, it's 64% of the violent crimes committed against people of the same race. And in terms of the percent of the population that is committing these crimes, in both cases, it is less than 1%. In the case of both white people and black people, a very, very small, less than 1% of people are responsible for violent crimes. However, when we look at the criminal justice system, we see a disproportionate number of African Americans represented in the prison system. About 40% of people in the criminal justice system are white, and almost the same number, 39%, of the people in the criminal justice system are black. Does that show justice as having an even hand? I don't know. And did I say happy Inauguration Day? That's it for this video. Like it if you like it, share, comment, subscribe. This is Reg signing off. Love yourself. Peace.
And I love myself.